Financial freedom can be defined in separate ways. But one of the most beautiful definitions of financial freedom is when you get to that point where you are not afraid of the next meal, the next thing, just covering your basic necessities. And that is what I think. And what it translates to is that what it means for me to be free might be different from what it means for maybe buyer to be free, what it means for winner to be free. And it's not about whether I have more or I have less. It's about, first of all, what are my needs and what are his needs? What obligation does he have? What obligation do I have? And that's also translated the kind of lifestyle that you live. One of the first person I met who said, look, I'm financial free, and is a mentor of mine. It's called Isiri Uko. And he was telling me that I was financially free because at that time when we were talking, everything that he needed to live the same quality of life that he was living that time, whether he works or not, whether he goes out in the morning or not, is well catered for. So that's where I would start from the definition of financial freedom. When you get to that point where it's not about actively going to earn, it's about your investment can keep you living the same quality of life till the end of your existence. So that, and very few people get to that point. A lot of people listening to me today would continue to need to work. Some of those incidents that I've seen that could be a bit sad was when there's one instance that's a bit sad. I was going to the mall and I stopped over in a particular hotel and I was talking to one of the porters and I was asking, how old are you, sir? He was looking quite active. I said, look, I'm 76. And he was trying to help me to move my stuff. And I said, look, so why are you still doing this? And he said, look, if I don't do this, I'm going to die of hunger. I just made a kind of mental note and prayer in my heart that I hope this never happens to me or to the person. So how do you get to that point where you can say relatively I'm financially free? Let me quickly say this, that the first step is financial freedom is actually a mental framework first. And what it means is when you get to that point, when you understand how to generate wealth, how to keep building, how to create value. Most people never get to that point. A lot of people tend to assume that the major way to make money is when they go to work 8 to 5. That is the wrong mindset. The way to make money is to understand that value creation is the way to make wealth. That's number one. And then when you make that money, you know how to make money. When you've crossed that particular part, no matter how small the money is, then you now ask, how do I continue to keep a portion of everything I make and then compound that portion of that I'm making and build it into a nest egg that can continue to give me X? And that is where knowledge comes in. And this is what I tell people. And I'm sure that for some of you, we've done how to build an investment portfolio. You may want to go and check that particular video, how to build. I think we've done how to build investment portfolio, right? You may want to go and check it. But the first thing in building a portfolio, which I would say here and then move on to the concept of debt, is to understand that the number one step is learning to pay yourself first. It's so simple, yet people never understand it. Learning to pay yourself first. You get your money, you're earning $1 million, and then you want to say every month, I want to take 30%. I generally encourage 30-40%, and then keep it in an account where I can continue to earn above inflation, or at least a reasonable interest, maybe between 15 to 18 and 18%. And then I keep putting my 300 on a monthly basis, come rain, come shine. And then once you know that you discipline yourself to be able to put aside to pay yourself first, and then you now say, these are the instruments I want to put it in. That second part is also a major issue for a lot of people. That's why people never get to that point where they have enough investment to cater for their need. Because an average person, when they start accumulating, let's say this person has said, I've contributed 300,000 every month. Or even if you're earning just 100K, I've contributed 300K, 30K, 35K, 40K every month. And now I have 350,000, I have 500,000. The error most people tend to think is to look for the things that glitter. You see, in investment, your major focus is, first of all, not to lose money, is on safety. So you must build that safety to a point where the safety part of your investment can cover potentially even if you lose the other side of the investment. Most people never take that part seriously, which is why somebody builds a portfolio of 1 million. The first thing they want to think about is, how do I triple this money? And then they put it in Forex, they put it in crypto, they put it in different kind of investment. I'm not saying that don't do those investments. I'm just saying that that should not be the priority at the beginning. What you want to do is to ask yourself, which instruments can I put this my nest egg into that can withstand the challenges, the turbulence that is relatively safe. There's nothing that is 100% safe. It's only God that's 100% safe. So that is why you must also invest in God's kingdom. If you're listening to me, I'm not preaching this time around, but I think there's a place for giving, and the investment return, because it's intangible, a lot of us tend to underestimate the power of giving and receiving. But once you cover that, you want to actually put those monies in those things that can continue to fetch you money. And I generally recommend go for federal government bonds if you can, go for mutual fund, go for commercial papers, fixed deposit, and then whatever, and ask them that you want to receive your money if it's fixed deposit on a monthly basis, so that as you bring in the next 30 or 300, depending on your level, you're also adding the interest you earned for that month and then reinvesting it at the same rate. For federal government bonds, they will usually pay you every 6 months. For treasury bills, they will pay you upfront immediately after you actually invest, and then you keep compounding it. And you must have a target goal to say, look, I want to be able to earn 5, 6, 7, 10 million on an annual basis from my investment. So you know that you can use compound interest calculator at 15%. If I keep putting 300,000, it will take me 10 years to get 50 million. So you set that goal, and then you maintain the discipline to build that nest egg. So let's say you get to your 50, 60 million, you put it in fixed income instrument, maybe a 30-year bond, knowing that you can get 15%. So that means that on your 50 million at 15%, you can guarantee you are getting 7.5 million every year, cumbering contract for the next 30 years. So you guarantee that whatever happens, you have 600K coming to you net every month that you can spend. What if you decide to not build it times 3 times 4 of that? So you can go do anything you want to do, knowing that there's a guaranteed source of cash. Then you can now start investing in those other things. The other thing that people want to look at is to ask yourself, what asset can I create that will continue to yield money for me, whether I'm working or I'm not working? If you look at, I was reading a story recently that the estate of Michael Jackson made hundreds of millions of dollars, I think, last year. And the money was made from this, whether sales of his catalog or royalty from his music. So you want to actually ask, what are the assets that I can create that will continue to yield money for me? You can decide, what if I build a community? What if I build a business? Remember I said start with the boring things, and then what if I build a business? What if I build a community? I have one of my colleagues who's building a community that is built around a certain vice, but if he's able to build a community, it makes it sustainable, and then you continue to earn money from that community, put structure into it so that I can run itself. Nairaland is one very solid asset that I've always admired from where I'm standing. For those of you, I'm sure all of us, do you know Nairaland, guys? Now, Nairaland, the guy makes hundreds of millions from that platform every year. And I'm sure it's one of the most visited sites in Nigeria till today. So if you can actually creatively come up with assets like that, whether you're a writer, you come up with a book that is evergreen, and then, come up with a platform that can sustain itself, build a community, create, the quite a number of things that is doable, particularly in this digital age. So that is also one way of guaranteeing those freedom. Yes, we will still continue to take the cash, build passive asset. Real estate is also, particularly if you're building rental properties, it's also one area that you can actually invest in as you walk towards financial freedom. The other thing that I've been asked to discuss is issue of debt. Usually I'm very careful when I'm discussing debt because I was just joking with them. I hope you know that I'm also in debt. But one of the things I know, there are 2 types of debt. I'm sure we've all heard this one. The debt you take to consume. People borrowed for parties, for wedding, for Ashwebi, for stuff, and then people borrow to invest in asset. So the first one is a no-no. The second one is good, but the second one is the most tricky, because one of the things I've learned from bitter experience is this concept of leverage. There was a time, because I was so aggressive, I said I wanted to take debts because I wanted to expand that portfolio, and then you become over leveraged. What it means is that your debt gets to a certain point where even your cash flow cannot cover the obligations that you need to make. You don't ever want, I've been in that situation, I'm just exiting one. You don't ever want to be in that scenario in your life, because what it means is that the mere fact that, yes, you had good intention, you wanted to build asset, but particularly when you're doing business, it can destroy your name, it can destroy your reputation, it can destroy the business you've been trying to build. So this is what I encourage entrepreneurs to do. From beginning of your business, you want to ask yourself, what will my debt obligation be like? What would my debt structure be like? And plan it into your business, plan your growth into your business, so that as you incur those obligations, your cash flow is able to do them. We won't be able to delve into, I think, please remember, we'll take a topic talking about, taking debt in business, how to manage that. So you just want to, tie your cash flow and your obligation repayment to the debt you are taking. Remember that also, when you take those monies from investors, and you have a sacred obligation to be disciplined about it. You can be disciplined. You might not spend it on frivolous stuff and you still run into trouble, but at least you would know that, things like that happen in business. So we won't discuss business debt today. Maybe when we finish paying our debt, we'll be able to fully explain how we did it. But the other impact, apart from issues of reputation, issues of relationship that it destroys if you have problems with managing those kind of obligations, is also the fact that it destroys your health as an entrepreneur, particularly if you're a responsible entrepreneur, because there are the days that I would just wake up in the night and like, how do we cope, and so on and so forth. It took a while before I was able to get to that point where, and I would teach that during that class, where I can say, look, you know what, I need to stay sane, I need to stay healthy, I need to stay conscious for me to be able to manage these obligations and repay. So we won't delve much into that, but coming back to the most important thing is, for financial freedom, if you are listening to me today and you've not started that, is the ability to pay yourself first. You get your money, no matter how small, you are putting 30% of that money or 40% of that money where you cannot touch it in December or Easter or in Salah. That is the first step. If you cannot scale that first step, there's no way that you can create wealth. And that's number one. Number two is the discipline to see that money and not have the overriding passion or desire or urge to go there and take it and spend it. So if you've not learned anything, I'd like you to take one thing. Paying yourself first is the most important step in the journey towards financial freedom. If you look at your account month in, month out, and you cannot consistently see what you are paying yourself first, whether in an investment account or even in cash, it shouldn't be in cash, by the way, or physical cash in your account sitting in a non-interest account. If you cannot see that, you cannot start on the journey to financial freedom. And how do you make sure that? Because hey, come to think of it, even your government does not trust you. That is why they take your tax before they give you the money. If they trust you, they would have said, no, pay the salary and then please pay your tax. But they deduct the tax before the salary gets to you, because they know that once it gets to you, you can't depend on yourself to debit. So what you also want to do is to take the government approach. That's why tax is a bit self-efficient. That's why all of us are paying tax, is to actually deduct the money before it gets to you. So if you're working, what you can do is to approach your payroll officer and to say, you know what, I've created this investment account. Before you pay my salary, do this deduction and remit to this account. That is one. If your company does not do that, is also to actually automate your account to say every time you receive this money, take a certain percentage and transfer. I think there are standing orders like that, particularly with the advent of a lot of digital platforms. And then moving in that account, that can yield at least 15% and above for you. And they keep compounding that year in, year out. So please start on this journey. The discipline, the changes that happens to you, even beyond the cash, which it can transform your life. Don't take those cash and finish spending it. It's the beginning of poverty. And I hope we learn that, it's not as exciting as talking about different investment schemes, but the discipline to do that is the first step. Let me quickly add that even after deducting, you want to have what you call accountability partners. If you don't have, you may not be serious about, and pick somebody that you'll be ashamed to go and tell that you did not stick to the plan. Those two things will transform your life. If you're not doing it, you want to start today. If you don't start today, you're not likely to start on the journey. And the younger you are, the better. The earlier you start, the more wealth you can accumulate.